evening and welcome to Galway Pulse. I'm Manya Avasthi.
And I'm Ross Kearney.
The headlines this evening. As Sinn Féin's stall motion fails, a wave of evictions are expected.
Farmers call for government intervention as costs continue to rise.
And high hopes for Galway United women in their first season.
Sinn Féin's motion to extend the eviction ban until 2024 was defeated yesterday in Leinster House. There are fears that the ending of the ban will see many renters evicted from April 1st. Sean Lyons has the report.
Evict the government. These are the words that one graffiti artist has written in Galway city centre in response to the government's highly disputed decision not to extend the eviction moratorium past the 31st of March. The ban, which was introduced in October 2022 to forestall an increase in homelessness in the winter months, prevented landlords from evicting tenants while the ban was in place. Fintan Maher of the Galway branch of the Simon community says that the ban should have remained, as he says that the situation is the same now as it was prior to the ban's introduction.
The fear was because the emergency accommodation service is under such pressure that if the moratorium and evictions wasn't put in place, that it would be overwhelmed and we would have people sleeping up on the street, families, individuals sleeping up on the streets during the winter. The government, and given the landscape as it was back then, the government took the decision to put this in place in order to prevent that happening. And it was the right thing to do at the time. And it's the very wrong thing to do now to lift it because the circumstances haven't changed other than we're now heading into the summer rather than the winter.
A total of 286 notices to quit were served to renters in Galway in the third quarter of 2022. With the lifting of the ban, many fear that there will be a wave of evictions which will lead to a surge in homelessness in Galway. Sinn Féin TD Mairead Farrell has questioned the lack of empathy in the government's decision.
I don't understand. I mean, we have a situation whereby the Minister for Housing literally went on the TV and said that he expects homelessness to rise as a result of this decision. So how with any kind of empathy or understanding of other people that decision could have been made, I don't understand.
The Dáil voted on the eviction ban last night, with Sinn Féin's motion to extend the ban being defeated by a razor-thin margin. People Before Profit representative Adrian Curran fears that Galway's homelessness services are not equipped for the inevitable increase in people seeking shelter.
The amount of notices to quit given in the last year is way up. It's about 3 times what would normally happen in the same time period. So if these evictions are all allowed to happen, there's a really bad situation coming down the road later this year. And I mean, in Galway, the emergency homeless accommodation is already effectively full, which is unheard of. It's never really happened before.
With what Father Peter McVerry describes as a wave of human misery coming ahead, Mairead Farrell says that local authorities will be powerless to prevent people from falling into homelessness.
The reality is now, we will have people who are going to be sleeping in their cars coming to me saying, where can I go? And the councils will be telling me they don't have anywhere for them.
Sean Lyons for Galway Pulse in Galway City Centre.
We're joined in studio by Sean Lyons for more on the lifting of the eviction ban. So Sean, as we know, the motion was defeated yesterday. Is this the end of it for now?
Well, the motion was defeated by only with a 15-vote majority or 15-vote margin of 83 to 68. That's a relatively small margin, and that's with the support of independent TDs, including the regional independent group. So not a large margin by any stretch of the imagination. We have to bear in mind that there's another motion going to be put forward soon by Sinn Féin to extend the ban. But more importantly than that, there's going to be a no-confidence motion next week put forward by Labour. And if that motion is passed, then that will be this government finished.
And Sean, how do you expect the motion of no confidence to go? Do you think they'll survive it?
Well, we heard Green Party's Pippa Hackett this morning saying that she thinks that the government have a strong enough majority to weather the storm, but we have to bear in mind that the government at the moment has a majority of just one person, so that's not particularly reassuring for the government. And we saw Nessa Horrigan of the Green Party yesterday sticking to her guns and going against her party, so there's nothing we can kind of take from that it could set a precedent and that other people in government might go against the party line. So very worrying times for the government.
Rising input costs have left Irish farmers concerned at the viability of their businesses in the future. The rising costs have been shifted down to the supply chain to consumers. Emer O'Dyo reports.
Recent CSO figures have shown that farm input costs have risen drastically. This has caused major food price inflation. Cork farmer Ross Bateman tells us more about the impact this is having.
I suppose the knock-on effect of that then means farmers basically need to request more money for the produce they put out. So if the inputs have gone up, the outputs, which is your beef or your milk, should by right go up, right?
Feed prices have risen by 27.7%.
Well, if our costs have gone up and then the cost of, say, the beef processor or the milk processor, their costs have gone up to buy our outputs, then the end cost is going to go up. So it just kind of shifts along the supply chain.
Cereal, pig, milk and cattle prices have been worst affected, according to the data. Independent TD Sean Canny tells us more about the input costs.
The knock-on effects of the war in Ukraine has meant that grain is not being produced because most of the grain has been coming from Ukraine and from Europe. The second thing then is that the energy prices have gone up, which has driven up transportation prices and has created also a scarcity of materials.
Cereal prices have increased by nearly 50%.
To have a pricing regulator for farming, and we need to make sure that price is regulated so that in the food chain for farm produce, that everybody gets a little bit of profit out of it, instead of somebody like a farmer making a loss on it at the end of the day.
It's clear to see that the input cost for farmers is having a great impact on consumers who have to pay more for their staple goods. However, with fertiliser prices and energy costs lowering in the coming months, maybe a solution is at hand. This is Emer O'Dwyer reporting for Galway Pulse.
We're now joined by Emer O'Dwyer in studio for more on that story. Emer.
Recent CSO figures show that there has been a 13.1% increase in food and beverage costs. This inflation is impacting consumers who have to spend more on their staple goods. This is partly a result of farm costs rising by over 20% in the last year. Cereal, pig, milk and cattle prices have been worst affected, according to the data. According to the CSO figures, a loaf of sliced pan will set you back an extra 24 cents. A 2-litre carton of milk has increased by 48 cents, while a kilogram of Irish cheddar has risen by €1.31. Galway Pulse put out a survey to consumers this week to see how they are reacting to these price changes. We received 20 responses. As we can see from the data, most respondents in Galway shop in Lidl, followed by Tesco, SuperValu, Aldi and Dunn's. 68% of consumers said they had to cut back. 5 people said they spent an extra €10 to €30 on their shopping per week. When asked what the most expensive items were, meat was the highest, with 10 respondents saying that meat had gone up considerably, followed by dairy, eggs and bread. It's clear to see that grocery inflation is having a big impact on Galway consumers.
Coffee may disappear from our shelves by 2050 as a result of global warming. Lucy Peoples reports.
Imagine a world where coffee doesn't exist anymore. That might be our future, according to Fairtrade Ireland. We could be looking at the end of the much-loved cup of coffee, says Peter Gaynor, the Executive Director of Fairtrade. Reporter Suhasini Srinivasaraghavan went to find out what people around Galway City thought. Ariel works at Little Lane, a popular coffee shop here in Eyre Square.
How many people do you see a day coming in for coffee?
At least 150, 200, I'd say. There's a lot of coffee shops, yeah.
She believes that energy drinks could be the next thing if coffee went off our shelves tomorrow.
I think that we would figure out a way to adapt, like we do with everything that kind of goes away. We will try to make it synthetically if we can, and basically try to find alternatives to coffee, such as energy drinks.
Fairtrade Ireland says coffee is being severely impacted by climate change. Most at risk are coffee beans, cocoa and other foods grown in hotter climates, which Fairtrade Ireland has said could become extremely rare and expensive treats within the next 30 years. By 2050, people may have to think of alternative beverages to consume in order to fulfill their coffee cravings.
You know, if we're not careful about these things, like, you know, kind of a first world problem to lose coffee, but also there's lots of other things that would happen because of climate change, that are happening because of climate change.
Fairtrade Ireland hints that unless major changes are made, 500 million small farmers responsible for growing popular commodities like tea and coffee, which are harvested throughout the world and then brought to Ireland, could face a stark future. Ariel believes that Galway could be heading towards taking a more sustainable approach to coffee.
I think Galway is shifting towards that.
Shifting to sustainable coffee could be a helpful solution, but is it too little, too late? This is Lucy Peoples for Galway Pulse News.
Yesterday marked the beginning of Ramadan. The devastating earthquake still weighs heavily on the hearts of Turkish and Syrian people in Galway. Nicole King reports.
Beza Koch says she still thinks about the survivors of this Turkey-Syria earthquake every day, and it will make this Ramadan more emotional for her and her community.
Lots of people lost their relatives, so it's going to be probably very hard for them to, be alone or don't have half of their families anymore. Regardless of even they don't have a home anymore, and for us it's, I think, easy to fast because we know we're going to eat in a few hours and we can cook the best meal, whatever we want to, but these people lost everything, so they probably don't even know if they will get something in the evening, so it's probably going to be really, really hard for them.
Those with Turkish and Syrian roots are still coping with the loss of loved ones following the 7.8 magnitude earthquake on the 6th of February, as well as the residual quakes that followed. Koch is a postgraduate student at the University of Galway. She is from Germany, but she has Turkish roots. And while she has running water and knows where she will get her next meal, she knows some in Turkey and Syria aren't quite so fortunate.
The first sip of water is always really special and really precious because you really understand what it means to not have that. We know we will get that, but a lot of people don't. And I think now we're personally affected by it because family members or friends of us are affected by it, and especially now with water being cut, it's definitely a bit harder.
Ramadan is the most holy of events observed in the Islamic calendar. Those observing the event fast from sunrise to sundown, breaking the fast with a family and friends late each evening. Abir Biazid is from Takia, Syria, but has lived in Galway for 14 years. She says that she looks forward to Ramadan each year.
Ramadan is the holiest month in the year for the Islamic culture. So this month I feel for myself as a charge for my soul. Every day we charge as Muslims, we charge our soul 5 times a day through the prayer.
Ramadan ends on the 21st of April, followed by the celebration of Eid al-Fitr. I'm Nicole King, reporting for the Galway Pulse.
This morning at the University of Galway, PhD students and researchers joined a national protest over pay and conditions. The Postgrad Workers Organisation is looking for a living wage, as the current wage they are on is surviving nearly €2 less than minimum. A representative of the group said postgraduates earn less than €18,500 per year. This problem is becoming more pressing in their lives. And finally, in sports, Galway United Women's Football Club played their third match of their first league campaign last Saturday, losing 1-0 to Bohemians. However, the team are optimistic about their season ahead. Ellie Mae Tremune reports.
Galway United Women's Football Club are optimistic about their first season, despite last weekend's 1-0 defeat against the Bohemians. The team were formed to contest this season's League of Ireland, following Galway Women's Football Club's folding last year as a result of financial difficulties. Yet, with one loss comes a triumph, as the forming of the new team means elite women's football remains strong in the region. Galway Women's Football Club were able to maintain a strong standard of football, so new team manager Phil Trill has high hopes for the group of women he has been working with.
This is a brand new club, in terms of Galway United taking on a women's team. It's been really good thus far. We played quite well against Cork. We played quite well against Wexford as well. Didn't get the result. But last week against Cork were really, really good. So we're hoping today that if we deliver a similar performance.
Following the women's national team's first ever World Cup qualification last year, the team have been inspired to work hard to maintain a strong standard amongst themselves. Jamie Erickson, a new signing, originally from Edmonton, Canada, is proud of the work ethic among the team.
Every team's going to be different. Every league's kind of got different strengths, different areas that you can really excel in. I think the standard here in Ireland's been really good, and last year was kind of dipping my feet in the water, and then this year is now kind of the chance, hopefully, as a team we can excel.
Ericsson is proud of the way the team have found a way to continue to train and play despite setbacks. With a fully integrated training facility for both the men's and women's teams, they now have the funding and resources to develop and showcase their talent.
The work ethic and kind of intensity in training, all the girls, it's been great. And, I mean, yeah, I can't say enough good things about Galway United.
Despite last weekend's loss to the Bohemians, Galway United Women's Football Club remain optimistic for the rest of their season. These women are ready to persevere and push as hard as they can for their next game. This has been Ellie Mather-Mewan for Galway Pulse News.
And that's all from us. Good evening.
Take care.